a heavily armed SWAT raid just 2 miles from the crime scene. 3 individuals suddenly detained in the dead of night, and a stranger's DNA uncovered inside the Tucson home of missing woman Nancy Guthrie. But as federal agents swarm the area to collect evidence, a disturbing procedural conflict threatens to overshadow the search. Why is critical forensic data allegedly being kept from the FBI? The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie has gripped the city of Tucson. Despite an intense search, the fundamental question remains, where is she, and who is responsible for taking her from her sprawling 1 to 4 acre property? Everything now depends on whether the court and federal authorities can process a newly discovered DNA sample fast enough, because the timeline to find her alive is rapidly shrinking. The geography of the area complicates everything. The neighborhood is a labyrinth of twisty, disorienting roads, dense desert vegetation, and strictly enforced dark sky ordinances that ban bright outdoor lighting. Whoever approached her home likely knew these exact blind spots. But as the days tick by, a secondary crisis is quietly unfolding. A search warrant is currently being executed at a property linked to recent police activity, and the results of that overnight evidence collection could dictate the entire future of the case. Yet instead of a unified front, the investigation appears fractured. What happens when the people tasked with solving a disappearance cannot agree on how to process the evidence? The investigation accelerated dramatically on a rain-soaked Friday night. Under the cover of darkness, Pima County SWAT teams, driving heavily armored vehicles, staged an operation targeting a home barely 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's residence. At precisely the same time, authorities initiated a traffic stop near a local Culver's restaurant. The coordination was deliberate. It is reported that authorities waited for the vehicle to leave the target house before moving in on both locations simultaneously. 3 individuals were detained, a man and a woman who surrendered peacefully outside the residence, and another man pulled from the vehicle near Culver's. But who are they? Current information indicates they are connected to the Nancy Guthrie investigation, though verification is needed to confirm if they are prime suspects or simply individuals brought in for questioning. Immediately following the detentions, the scene shifted. Local deputies were soon joined by a massive influx of FBI agents and an evidence response unit tasked with conducting a thorough all-night search of the property. The pressure is immense. A similar operation recently took place in Rio Rico, near the Mexico border, where an individual named Carlos was detained and a search warrant executed, only for authorities to release him hours later when the lead seemingly went cold. Will this new raid yield the missing puzzle piece, or is it another dead end? While the SWAT raid dominated the night, the most critical piece of physical evidence was quietly confirmed earlier in the day. Inside Nancy Guthrie's home, forensic teams isolated a DNA profile. It does not belong to Nancy. It does not belong to her family. And after cross-referencing landscapers, pool maintenance workers, and drivers who had legitimate access to the property, the profile remains unmatched. A stranger was in the house. The discovery of this unidentified DNA provides a massive tactical advantage. If the individuals detained during the SWAT raid are involved, investigators can immediately attempt to match their genetic material against the sample found at the scene. Even if there is no direct match to a local suspect, the FBI's involvement opens the door to genetic genealogy, the same advanced tracing technique used in the Idaho investigation of Bryan Kohberger. By running the unknown DNA through expansive commercial databases, federal agents could theoretically track down 3rd or 4th cousins, whittling down a family tree until they identify the suspect. But this requires seamless cooperation between local and federal agencies. And right now, allegations have surfaced of a bitter turf war. Reports indicate severe disagreements between the Pima County Sheriff's Office and the FBI. Sources allege that the sheriff has withheld critical evidence, opting to send items, including recently discovered black gloves found along a roadway, to a contracted private lab in Florida rather than the FBI's elite facility in Quantico. The sheriff has publicly denied these claims, stating that the relationship with the FBI is collaborative. He stated that evidence was sent to the Florida lab simply because they initiated testing there at the start of the case, and it made logistical sense to keep it in one place. He also explicitly denied rumors that a glove was found inside Nancy Guthrie's home, clarifying that gloves were only found outside the property. However, former Pima County Under Sheriff Rick Castagar has openly criticized the current leadership. Castagar, who served for 40 years, called the decision to bypass Quantico outrageous. He alleges the friction stems from a historical grudge dating back to 2016, involving a federal RICO investigation into the misuse of racketeering funds by the sheriff's subordinates. According to Castagar, the FBI did not keep the sheriff apprised of that investigation, sparking a deep-seated distrust that continues today. These allegations of territoriality have reached the highest levels, with President Trump recently commenting outside the White House, suggesting that local authorities didn't want to let go of the case initially. With time running out, who is actually in control of the evidence? The procedural reality is that the Pima County Sheriff has the ultimate jurisdictional authority to dictate where physical evidence is processed. However, deliberately avoiding the FBI's vast technological resources, if the allegations are true, could severely delay critical forensic results. We have already seen the disparity in capabilities. Early in the investigation, local authorities reportedly believed that surveillance footage from Nancy Guthrie's front door was unusable. It was only when the FBI intervened that the video was enhanced, revealing a clear, masked figure standing at the entrance. Furthermore, the sheriff's office is now requesting all neighborhood surveillance video spanning back to January 1st. This suggests investigators believe the perpetrator did not strike randomly, but was surveilling the property long before the abduction took place. The dense vegetation and vast, isolated properties would provide perfect cover for a predator patiently mapping out the terrain. The entire case now rests on the physical evidence currently sitting in laboratories and the items being pulled from the targeted house tonight. Investigators will be looking to cross-reference the stranger's DNA found in Nancy's home with the 3 individuals currently detained. At the same time, the forensic analysis of the gloves found near the property remains pending. The sheer volume of FBI agents deployed to the SWAT scene indicates that federal authorities believe they have found something substantial. As the sun rises over Tucson and the Evidence Response Unit concludes their search of the property, the world waits for the next briefing. Will the items seized from this house finally match the stranger's DNA? Or is the person who took Nancy Guthrie still hiding in the dark?